Sanskrit is being used, every letter has a primary sound, and that primary sound creates a similar hormonal or emotional impulse in us, which is called the astitva. That's the word, or the entirety is the most potent word. And ha is the last word of our alphabet. It shows the highest form, and that highest form can be both positive and negative. In fact, you see, high, the word itself is being used. It has a ha in that, right? The same words travel, same sound form travel from language to language. It's just that we know the key and they don't know it. When we read the ancient scriptures, especially the Vedas and all, it will sound very childish at certain times. God give me rain, God give me somras, God give me this and that. So you would wonder why it would be like that, because when they're asking for certain things, they're actually meaning something else, which we forgot that language key. It has been very succinctly captured in our text as Sat, Chit and Ananda. That's the totality of our existence. It's very wrongly translated into English as existence, consciousness and bliss. Existent consciousness is fine, but the word bliss is a very misnomer on that. The way we always think of these three words together is in a very horizontal way, Sat, Chit, Ananda. But to my understanding, it's better we look at it from a vertical way.
Okay.
So Ananda giving birth to Chit and Chit giving birth to Sat. Today, I'll start by giving a little bit of a background on Sanskritam itself. And the reason is language is very fundamental to the way we think. And Sanskrit has always, has been looked into as a language which is kind of a dead and it's not in use today. But the essential structure of Sanskrit is it is a verb-based language. And being a verb-based language, there are certain features that it ensures or it brings into the fore. A verb is an action, right? So where every action is being emphasized upon, or you have a name given to an action. So the focus was on action. And now in a logocentric language or in modern day language like English or any other, where the focus is on the actor. What it is doing is it is glorifying the actor and not their action. So a person can have actions which are not appropriate, yet as the instrument or the actor becomes important in the language of a subject predicate kind of a discussion, right? So what we are doing is, and that has created an isolation, because that's where when you talk about an actor, his ego comes in, his own self comes in, right? So because the language is prompting us to think in that way, and this is very, very fundamental fundamental thing that we need to look into, because the language structure makes us think, and if we are thinking in terms of actors, we are glorifying the actor. But if we think of the actions, it becomes a whole different thing. So I become lesser important than my work, right? So that's the thing. Then, see, another important aspect is that what we oftentimes forget is we are intelligent. We all know that we are intelligent being. But this intelligence is not coming in isolation. It is intelligence develops in group. Whenever we work as a group, as a team, that's when intelligence comes in. So for example, imagine say 30, 40, 50 years back, when we had computer terminals which were not connected to each other, right? They were not intelligent. The moment you connected them through an office network of LAN and WAN, and then now with internet, right? It is more and more connection. As you build this connection, the level of intelligence improves. It's the same thing as we humans, if we consider as each of us as terminals, right? With a particular set of features and functions. And when I am not intelligent by myself, I am intelligent in my interaction with the others. right? So that thing we have to forget. We have to keep in mind. It's very critical. So any isolation from others is creating the problem, and our intelligence is dependent on that. Also, I want to emphasize that like a fish, fish lives in water, right? We live in air. Human beings live in the medium of air. And in this medium of and this connection, so in order to connect to you and I, so there is a, say in computer there is TCP/IP, right? This is an IP address, this is an IP address, you exchange data information from that. So there has to be a communication, and the communication has to be in a language which is deciphered both ways, like a binary 0-1 language, which is basically, if you could drill one level down, it is a switch on and switch off. Either you have the lights on, which is a 1, or the light is off, which is 0. So like that, it works. So and since we are living in the medium of air, sound is the way we communicate. So and sound is nothing but a vibration in the air, right? Or any other and this sound vibration, what it does is, when you emit some sound from your side and it comes to me, I decode that sound vibration, like and then how I do that? It creates certain emotions.
Okay.
Yeah. So that emotions actually trigger some hormonal release, neurobiological response to those emotions, and then you give a reaction to that emotion, right? That's how this communication becomes complete. And whatever is your emotion, or how your hormones and things like that how you neurobiologically responded, is creating the pattern of memory in you, right?
Right.
And the memory is all we are.
Correct.
I'm sitting here, and if you show me my photograph when I was a 5-year-old boy, no one can make out it's the same person. It is the continuity of our existence is given through memory. And this chain of experience, which is again my communicating with you, is developing your memory, it's developing your intelligence. And whenever I'm talking to you, so when, say, this communication itself, when I'm talking to you, you are interpreting based on whatever things you have heard or learned or seen in the past. And that's the thing. So, and then this memory is in language.
Right.
Right? If you have to tell me how was your school or days, you will have to use a language to communicate that language. So that language, that sound form of that particular language, say you say my school days were my best days, right? That best, the vibration that word has created, is going to come to me, right? And I interpret it in that, and I can understand, okay, Akshay had a best school life. So like that, we think in that language, and so there is a code in today's world, in any language that we use, primarily English and all. You say a table or a chair or a camera. If someone has never seen it, he lives in a jungle and has never seen a table and a chair, but they cannot make out what it means, how it can look. They cannot visualize that. But in Sanskrit they can, because in Sanskrit when we explain that thing, we tell its properties, we tell its function, features, so that way you can correlate. And for that there is a language key that is being used as a so a syllable. Syllable is a unit of language, sound, you can say, that creates a particular response. And then that syllable is can be one or more, and then you have your alphabets. So alphabets or syllables are the akshars. Okay, so an akshar is called Brahman in our context.
Okay.
So that's how when we talk about Brahman, Brahman means the absolute universal consciousness and the entirety of creation, and not only of this world but many worlds, right? So that's how fundamental this sound is. And the moment you utter a sound, you are manifesting certain things. Because this universe is a journey from silence to sound. If you cannot pronounce, if you cannot explain it, means the moment you express it in vibrations and sound, you are creating certain thing. From the infinite, you are restricting it, because if it is infinite, then it is not a creation, right? Infinite just exists by its own definition. The moment you put brackets around that, confine it, that's when your creation happens. So if you look at the word Brahman itself, it comes from the Bri Dhatu, and I'll come to that later maybe. But it is when you add certain words, and this is how Sanskrit is being used. Like every letter has a primary sound, and that primary sound creates a similar hormonal or emotional impulse in us. So, and like which is called the astitva, that's the word, or the entirety. It's is the most potent word, ah. And ha is the last word of this our alphabet, and it shows the highest form. Okay, and that highest form can be both positive and negative. Okay, in fact, you see, high, the
High.
word itself is being used. It has a ha in that,
Ha.
right? The same words travel, same sound form travel from language to language. It's just that we know the key and they don't know it. Why a high should be pronounced as with ha. Okay, and your ha. And in fact, say honey, not honey means not the madhu, not the honey means to damage, or hatya, right? This is also ha, because that is also the ultimate stage.
Hani Hatya.
And then on the other side you have so that's how these words have been created. And the primordial word of that's from where it is said our universe created was Om, right? So if you see the Om, the A starts just right here, and the U ends here. So this space is your entire creational thing from a sound perspective, yeah. Which is again, that is the Nad Brahman, the sound form. And in the Rig Veda, we find Vak as the goddess of speech and sound has been glorified as the highest. Okay, it is the highest. It is called a creator goddess. Okay, Vak is a creator goddess. The modern the way it has transformed to modern iconography or modern thing is Saraswati, goddess Saraswati. And Saraswati, the meaning of the word Saraswati denotes it is a expression of a downward cascading motion. Okay, so something that has started at the highest, you add certain things, you downward cascade and restrict it, right? And it continues to flow. So that is the meaning of Saraswati. So that's why your rivers can be a Saraswati from a flow standpoint. And also the wife or the consort of Lord Brahma is Saraswati, because while Brahma is the creator god, and the flow of that creator god has to come through Saraswati. So that's how these things are being very, very scientifically captured in our language. in our spiritual text. And so that's how these things work. So another example, like if I have to give you, we have the letter go,
Go.
right? Go, and the root meaning, sound meaning of it is gaman or movement.
Okay.
The same meaning is in English, go. Okay.
Does Ganga also come?
Ganga, yeah, absolutely. And you can think of any word, it will have that movement. If it doesn't have a movement, it won't start with ga. That's that important thing. Like for pa, it's palon, or the one that nurtures, nourishes, and all, right? Palon karta hai. So like our father, right? Who इसीलिए the papa, father, and all that. So, and the reason is we often think our one of our, I mean, every god has 100 names and 1,000 names based on their features and all, right? The thing is, your all this is possible because we're saying their attributes. Because if I, as a person, I can have 3-4 functions. Say I work somewhere, I write books, I have my family. So to them, I am to my son, I am a father. To my uh, parents, I am a son. So I have
Multiple.
4-5 verbs can be used for me. But for a God who is almighty and all powerful, so there are thousands of attributes, and that's why they are always said to be has so many, like Vishnu Sahasranam, you have so many of the attributes.
Many of the ancient personalities have Sahasranam.
Yeah, Shastranam.
Even Arjuna and
Yes,
many characters in
yes.
Mahabharata.
And if you see in Gita,
Hmm.
the word of whenever Lord Krishna is addressing Arjuna, he is addressing in a different name
Different
all the time, different times,
Many times.
based on the usage of
Right.
his. Okay. Okay. So then that's why go, the word I was coming to, is say go is going, and that can be appropriated to gao, which is a cow. Okay. In the other name for go is other name for it's arrow. Arrow is also, so if how it has distorted our understanding is, say today if I same word is being used twice in different contexts, but we have forgotten the root meaning of that word. Ki ga means movement.
Right.
And now when we say that, okay, arrow is walking on the field and grazing and eating grass, it will look stupid, right? Because we have forgotten the meaning of the word ga itself.
Go.
So that is, and say if I tell you कि two birds or two पक्षी, दो पक्षी फुटबॉल खेल रहे हैं, हाँ, तुम बोले सर आप क्या, means what are you saying? I said yeah, because the word means pakshi means that which has two complementary or parts. Paksh hai. So जिसका दो पक्ष है, so two football teams can play. So
Right.
दो पक्षी, right? So that's where it created all the confusion, because over a period of time we forgot that root meanings, and we now have become more focused on using one particular meaning because that is easy. Like say today if you go to a store, you will say, okay, you won't say give me detergent powder, you will tell me give me surf or something. Because of the prevalent usage, we have taken one out of the hundreds options, and now we have narrowed our scope, and the language has become inflexible. Right. So that flexibility has been lost, and because it is lost, now we cannot go back when we read the ancient scriptures, especially the Vedas and all, it will sound very childish at certain times. God give me rain, God give me somras, God give me this and that. So you would wonder why it would be like that, because when they're asking for certain things, they're actually meaning something else, right? Which we forgot that language key. And I happen to stumble upon my gurus in that sense is Ravi Chakravarti and Kalim Khan, and they have compiled a dictionary which I have, and then there is another dictionary like your Haricharan dictionary in Bengali. So those dictionaries had certain the sound root meanings, and Rishi Aurobindo, his own work has a lot of these meanings. So it's important that we bring that to the fore and then take this effort forward.
So, sir, how does this formulation of Sanskrit language correlates to the creation that we see or the way we perceive it?
It has been very succinctly captured in our text as Sat Chit and Ananda. That's the totality of our existence.
Right.
Okay. It's very wrongly translated into English as existence, consciousness, and bliss. Existent consciousness is fine, but the word bliss is a very misnomer on that. The way we always think of this word, these three words together, is in a very horizontal way, Sat Chit Ananda. But to my understanding, it's better we look at it from a vertical way.
Okay.
So Ananda giving birth to Chit, and Chit giving birth to Sat.
Okay.
Okay. So Ananda is the word for your vibration. Ananda is the substratum, the basis on which that vibration is happening.
Okay.
That itself is not vibrating, but it is the basis on which that vibration happens, right? Like, yeah, I can give some instruments, music instruments example, but which is not perfect, but you can think of a musical instrument which helps the other strings to vibrate, but itself stays the same, like a guitar, right? The guitar bass would, the wooden piece would remain
calm.
although it vibrates. I'm just discounting that fact, but your strings are vibrating and creating the sound, right? Same way, your Ananda is giving is the substratum on which that vibration is happening. Okay, and based on that vibration, the first subtle creation is consciousness.
Okay.
Okay, and consciousness is in turn getting more and more gross over a period of time, and it is then becoming Sat, existence. Okay, material manifestation. That's how this universe is getting created. Inside that, you have the universal consciousness under Chit. Okay, that gives birth. This is as per Shangho to individual consciousness, and from there you have Buddhi, intelligence, and from there ego. Okay.
Ahamkar.
Ahankar. Ahankar gives birth to this three guna.
Okay.
Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. Okay. And this triguna is actually creating, is again a string, because I'll come to that, but guna, the word guna means a string in Sanskrit. Okay, it's a straight translation. It's nothing like I'm saying it. It's, I wonder why it was overlooked for so many years. But gunas means string. And this string or guna is made of paramanu. If you correlate that in string theory physics, the final ultimate thing, or the undivisible part is a vibrating string which looks like a rubber band. Okay, a rubber band, if it is vibrating, that's inside everything that is there. That's why we say guna, everything is endowed with a guna. It translates to an attribute, it translates to a merit and all those other words, but at the base of it is that vibrational string. Okay, that gives rise to your paramanu. Okay, gunas creates paramanu, and that is if you equate that, that becomes the quarks and the leptons and the gluons. And then that again recombines to create the protons and electrons. And from that is basically Anu. Okay.
Anu.
Okay. Anus creates Divyanu or molecules. Multiple Anus come together to create this
A molecule.
And these molecules then go ahead and create these elements or bhutas or panchabhuta that we have. Okay. And then the direction of this is consciousness getting also another type of, it's an energy. At the end of the day, everything is an energy. And this energy is being consciousness getting transformed into matter, gross matter. Gross matter over a period of time goes back to the original state of consciousness. That's the cycle of creation. If you think about it, the universe age is 13.8 billion years. The age of Earth is around 4.5 billion years. Right? In this small time span, while we have a 3.11 trillion years of a universal time, as per our thing, within just so 13.8 billion years is only a fraction of the total time this universe is going to exist. Okay. We have nature has already transformed a lot of matter into consciousness.
Correct.
That is why you and I are talking in a conscious way, right? There is consciousness in plants, there is consciousness in animals, there is everything. It is slow, progressively transforming matter into consciousness. So there will be a stage, say many billion years ahead, when there will be a total consciousness. And that's the journey that this universe makes. So from consciousness to matter, then back to matter. So that whenever matter and consciousness, it is kind of separated, right? But this over a period of time, that separation, that is the direction of this creation. So it comes back to its original state of consciousness. Okay.
So we will consider that consciousness came first and then it.
Yeah, consciousness came first, and is the first outcome from that Ananda state. Okay.
So the way the earth moves, the planets move, the sun moves, we'll also call it its consciousness, or not?
Yeah, it is.
There's planetary motion basically.
Yeah, we can't call that as consciousness. There is certain laws that is generated at the time of Big Bang or whenever the world. So and then that algorithm is spinning out this these galaxies, this stars and this whole solar systems and planetary systems. So, but then the consciousness is you are also aware of it. So if it is self-awareness, because consciousness is needed. Why? That is because of self-determination. If you want to decide your own future, you have to be more conscious. Say for a plant, it cannot determine its own future in that sense. A man can go and pluck a leaf out of it, right? It has very little defense it can create. Animals also, right? They can be harmed, they can be patted and all. But what is happening is your consciousness, the more you become conscious, you are taking control back to yourself. You are becoming you are able to determine for yourself what is right and wrong. Like in a rishi or a siddha purush, right? They have more control on themselves than ordinary people do, and that's why the universe as a whole also needs that self-determination, and they can go from that's the journey that is happening. As I was saying, Triguna So guna comes out of, and this guna is very importantly, it operates at a very higher dimension. We live in a three-dimensional plane, while and the fourth is the time, but three physical dimensions. Gunas, as per the modern string theory physics, and the string or these vibrating rubber bands are existing in an 11-dimensional space-time, okay, where 10 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time.
Okay.
Right? And that's where, in that stage, there is the grand unification of all fundamental forces like gravity, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, all comes together at that 11 dimensions. That's the mathematics that the scientists have come up with. Okay. And based on how that vibration happens, we are creating these elementary particles. Is being spin off. It's every time that vibration spins off different these kind of elementary particles, like your quarks, your leptons, your Higgs boson, and all that stuff. And so that's the correlation. And then again, inside this, we have not stopped at while the world physics is talking about a string, one string as one unit, but we are talking about strings in three parts, of Satya, Raja, and Tama. Okay, and so Satya is potential energy, Rajas is kinetic energy, and Tamas is inertia. So anything that comes to a tamas stage is basically getting a material form. If you look at our scriptures, you will see that in the Rig Veda itself, it says Vishnu is the most ancient of all, yet also the most recent. No one creates Vishnu, yet Vishnu creates everyone and everything. It is in Rig Veda 1.156.2. So, what is our current understanding or scientific understanding is that the universe, the first force to emerge was gravity, and from that it branched off in, and we know that story of how it is in mythology. It is shown like from the Nabhipad navel of Vishnu, your Brahmaji comes out, right? And Brahmaji creates this universe. He could not create it himself. There was four Manasputras, and which failed to take this creation forward. Then, with his anger, Rudra Shiva was born from his forehead, and then thereafter you have Saraswati as the weak nuclear force. So the way it is exactly the sequence of event that is being told in a mythological way, that that science is talking today. Okay, where you have gravity first, then you have the strong nuclear force, then you have the electromagnetic force, and then you have the weak nuclear force. And then while all the three kind of being confined or can be converted into a one equation, like the strong nuclear force and weak nuclear force and electromagnetic force, but gravity remains very separate. You cannot, because gravity acts at a very large scale, right, and others at a smaller scale. Immediately after the Big Bang, there was a grand unification of all fundamental force, when the strong nuclear force, electromagnetic and nuclear forces were unified at 10 to the power 27 Kelvin, and gravity was separate. And in all our Purans, the Linga Puran, Vayu Puran, Vishnu Puran, and Skanda Puran, you will see that Brahma was created. From him emerged Rudra Shiva in Ardhanarishwar, and dividing into 11 male and 11 female forms. Okay, so the story remains same. And if we go deep and deep into this, I think we can find more clues that can corroborate or show, even go one step further and tell that okay, there may be this is there in down the line, right? Because we not only stopped at that, then we said okay, this is the field, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar, where Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar is the unified field of unified field of Ishwar.
Ishwara.
So we call them together Ishwar. We classify it as the Nirguna Brahman, Brahman and Saguna Brahman, where Nirguna is without attributes, vibrationless, Ananda state, and from there you have the Saguna Brahma, in contrast, was envisioned as with attributes. Yeah, so that's how this unified field of Ishwar, we have already conceived of that. Okay, coming to the next step of what it is doing from a cosmological standpoint, or at the highest level, brains. Okay, so now the recent current concept of is that brains, basically it is called membrane. So we are living on a sheet of paper or something which is a two-dimensional, and these membranes are objects of which can propagate through space according to the rules of the quantum mechanics. They have mass and can have other attributes such as a charge. So this is the Saguna Brahman. So whenever in this discussion I am talking about it, so I would request the audience not to interpret that I am talking about the highest absolute reality more from a philosophical sense of Nirgun Brahman, but I am talking about the Sagun Brahman, where it is with attributes. And now let us look at the attributes and see where we stand with these ideas. And in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, it is mentioned that that basically is Brahman, from which is derived the births, etc. of the universe. So the same thing, like in a universe, things like kind of pop up, continuously, each second or each some milliseconds. You are getting a new universe out of
creation and destruction is constant.
It's constant, and that happens on this membrane, and that's where we have equated, or this topic is basically calling it as brains to Brahman. Okay.
So, sir, how were our ancient rishis articulating their thoughts and their understanding about this space, time, and causality that we are talking about?
Actually, they have been very, very clear. Their ideas about what it is, which force acts in which dimension, right? And they have, as per my little understanding, they have captured it in terms of the words of Bhuja. Okay.
Bhuja, as
Bhuja
in
means arm.
Okay.
Bhuja means arm. So you'll see every god is depicted with a different number of hands. Okay. There must be some reason why some god has a 10 hand and some has 2 and some has 4. I don't think we have thought through that process very deeply, because it has been this word, if you decode that word Bhuja, it starts. So when we say Bha, is when something comes to a stable state or appears and becomes luminous. It is called Bha, like the word Bhasha, Bhakti, Prabha, right? And when you change that Bha to a Bhu, it becomes filling up of an empty space, or something empty, you are filling it up. In our ordinary way, we fill up something with our hands. Okay. So similarly, they may have derived or codified it, I would say, in terms of the number of hands. And that's where you give that Bhuja means that which helps to enlist and fill up the empty space or something, like with the use of hand, right? Thus the three hands. So when we talk about a triangle, we say it is a tribhuja. Tribhuja, right? So similarly, why then can't we say that bhuja the same, because a triangle shows you're in a two-dimensional element, right? So you have goddess Durga, which is again what is the string theory is saying 11 dimension, 1 dimension of time, and then 10 dimensions of space, which is captured in as Durga. And then you have Kali, okay, which she has 4 hands. Kali has 4 hands, so she is operating in a 4-dimensional space. Okay. We have plus the 1 dimension of time. If you look at a symbol of goddess Kali standing on Shiva, Shiva is Kal, Mahakal, right? That's the time dimension. And Kali standing on her shows your space dimension. So that iconographically or in the visually or in our thing, when we worship goddess Kali, is exactly when we as per me, again I can be wrong, is that they are showing giving us a hint on that 4 dimension of space time where we exist. If you look at the sequence of our festivals also, you have the Durga Puja, followed by the Kali Puja or the Diwali, right? Diwali in many parts we are celebrating as Kali Puja. And it shows, say, first you have a 10-dimensional universe. Now that universe is not where we exist. We exist in a 4-dimensional universe where Shiva and Kali are unified. And that's where your Kali Puja is celebrated after Durga Puja. And I have a strong sense that if someone does a research, they will be able to correlate these things, why each of the festivities or festivals happen at a particular time and in sequence.
And it has a lot to do with nakshatra and
nakshatra is there, but why that one? Say we start with a Ganesh after the Prithvi Paksha, there is a Ganesh Chaturthi, right? Is the first stage where you start something. Okay, I don't want to digress into another thing, but basically that's one area I think we have to also think through. That's absolutely the way I look at it, and I always give this caveat because it's very hard to prove, right? It is only when we have more and more corroboration of this through research, and it's not I can do it all alone. Okay, so if you see, this is the way and this is captured in Chandi. Okay, when we do the Chandi, it says where Vishnuji was in his Yoga Nitra. Okay, then Madhukaita came out of the wax came out of his ears, and then Devi Mahamaya. The moment it adds the word Maha, it becomes in a different dimension.
Okay.
Maya, another dimension. Mahakal, another dimension. Kal, another dimension. Right. Okay, so it's a 10 dimension Maha. You can assume, and 4 dimension is the normal. So when we say, we don't say Maha Brahma, right? We say Brahma. We say Shiva. We don't say Mahashiva. So that, but when we say Mahavishnu, so he's operating, the gravity force is operating in a 10-dimensional space.
Right.
And that's, he has to be awakened. And who does that is Durga, the space, if you think about it. Durga awakens Mahavishnu, and then Vishnu kills Madhukaita. It's not Durga. Okay. So once that happens, then the creation starts from Vishnu's navel and with Brahma, and then it goes forward. And and Durga, the other name for Durga is Mahamaya. So this whole creation of nature of this 10 dimension is the Mahamaya. We are inside that another small box of Maya. Okay. And we are doing another small, what we are doing is made to do is Leela, another small play. So it's a holographic universe that is three-dimensional. It's a holographic universe, and we have always talked about it in, say, Bhu Bhuvaswa, and in all you will see that we have emphasized on three, the number three. So everything happens in three stages, three things, three guna, and all that. So Mahamaya is visualized as goddess Durga. Durga means the impossible. So you cannot cross Durga. Durga, basically the word comes from Durg, like a fort,
Right.
and you cannot cross that fort. So the universe, this universe, the boundary condition is Durga. Okay, you cannot cross that word. And means the insurpassable. It's amazing to note that Vishnu, another name for Vishnu is also Mahamaya. Okay, so that's where this gravity maybe is and okay, I don't want to speculate too much on this, but 1001 you are embodied of creation. So there is in the Bhagavad Puran, you will see that Vishnu impenetrable power makes jivas. The only way to conquer this is to realize that Atman
is not subject to the modification transformation of Maya
Maya.
and can transgress multiple universes. Bhagavad Puran.
Yeah. Okay. So coming to, so I think we spoke about Durga in terms of the dimensions, right? And
Now we come to Shiva.
Now we come to Shiva, which is Kal, and it is again, I don't have to explain to any a practicing Hindu that Kal is Mahakal is Shiva. So that is always is an established fact. Time is the measure of universal entropy. Entropy is the measurement and the degree of randomness. Time is a mental construct and exists in memory as real. So this is from what science is saying.
Okay.
And what Bhagavad Gita is saying is, I am mighty time, the source of destruction that comes forth and annihilates the world. Without even without your participation, the warriors arrayed in the opposing army shall cease to exist. So it is not only talking about time, it is also talking about time minus time of the in the future. So in the future I have already killed. So the concept here is mostly going from normal time to your retrocausal time. So where my future is impacting in this. Say tomorrow something will happen to me. That's why I'm sitting here and having this conversation with you. Right? So something future event is getting created, is already being created because of the cyclic nature of time. Your past and future kind of there is no present. And if you look at the Astra also, so Astra is basically attributes to protect its existence, which is Tra means to tide over certain thing, right? And the way you tide over in mantra, you tide over with your man. In yantra, you tide over with technology, right? Or some rituals, formulas that is there. Hence, astras, each hand of Devi Durga has a different astra.
Right.
And if you, when something changes from two, there is the split. So basically, the way the universal thing happens is, you start with one, one becomes two, two becomes three. Okay, so one is Brahman, the absolute, leave that out.
Then it's two forms.
It's two forms. And then the third is your Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, the three gunas are being formed.
And then this so 3 is basically when you this triguna of the so the demon or Mahishasur. Okay, Mahishasur is again not a demon, but I don't want to use that word. Is not even a asura. So asura is a spiritual entity with a without a it's a spiritual entity that is actually coming in the way of creation. So if you look at the Chandi and all, you will see that there are 3 stages. First is Madhukaita, then there is Shumbha Nishumbha, and finally Mahishasur.
Nice.
Okay, so these 3 stages are also happened in the universal creation of from Big Bang to now. So 3 stages where the universe started and then went into darkness, started and then went into darkness, complete darkness. And then something changed, and then the universe again started creating the stars and galaxies. So it is somehow captured. I think it's captured there, and the way Durga defeats this the Mahishasur, the darkness in that symbolic form, not in that, is basically it is Shul is basically your when you have a shu sh or shu, it is directional energy. S is energy. When you have sh, it is directional energy or velocity. And thus Durga ultimately uses Trishul of the Triguna. So Triguna to kill Mahishasur. And the Trishul was gifted to Durga by Shiva. So it's the electromagnetic force, and what science is saying today, this universe is existing primarily because of it's an electromagnetic universe.
Okay,
we are living in that. And as I was saying, in Gita, we are not talking about time just as a direction, a one direction arrow, but we are talking about a cyclic time. We are talking about future impacting us, where which is current physics or quantum physics is always talking about retrocausality. Retrocausality is a future event impacting backward in time and creating, where cause is secondary. Effect means now we understand that cause creates an effect, but in retrocausality, effect creates the cause. Okay, and that's what in Gita also it is mentioned कि मैं तो सब तुम्हारे परिवार को पहले ही बांट चुका हूँ, and he shows it that event has happened, and you are just an instrument to that. So that's how deep our concepts have been. Even if so, I do Durga Puja every year in London. I do Durga Puja myself. Okay. And if you see this shape, and when we do Durga Puja, or any puja, we worship the Kalash, right?
Right.
The Kalash, and the shape of the universe. If you see in the diagram, that's on the left hand side is what the scientists have come up with on the diagram, and see the Kalash design that we have. And it says the Hiranyagarbha emerged in the state of equilibrium, primeval creator, born as the sole lord of all beings. He's established the earth and heavens, and whom we offer our prayers. So this is Rig Ved, the 10.121.1. And so that's where it says that the Hiranyagarbha, and if you look at also another from an event or an festivity standpoint, we have the Mahalaya. Before that, we have the Pitrupaksha, where Pitrupaksha is a symbolic denotation of where destruction, complete destruction happens. Pralaya. Okay. After the Pralaya happens, is complete, we on the day of Mahalaya, we do Tarpan. We offer to our ancestors. Right. And this is Mahalaya, means it is everything has been dissolved. It's in Laya, means it's in a state of equilibrium. It is not any chaos. It is in a state of equilibrium. And then from day one, Devi Durga takes 10
Remerged.
9 forms in like in the Navratri. So she takes 9 different forms. On the 8th after the Sandhi Puja, Sandhi Puja is the time when Devi Durga defeats Mahishasur, and that's when she becomes from a 10 hands to a 4-hand Chandi.
Okay.
Okay, so she's previously worshipped in 10 hands, but in the Chandi after that she is worshipped in with 4
4
hands. Okay, and that's how this thing is. And even when we do the mantra when we establish the Ghatasthapana mantra, it says, in the mouth of the Kalash resides Vishnu, on its neck resides Rudra, on the base resides Brahma, and in the middle are the divine mothers. Okay, so that's the energy part. You have these the 3 forces coming together, and that's the thing. So we are actually creating a pseudo prototype,
Prototype or
a
model.
prototype of the universe
itself.
And then worshipping it. So that it's not without a reason why we are not praying to some god and to please them to get this thing, but we are basically showing our reverence to this whole creation itself. And that's why you have in this puja, also Durga Puja, you have the Vanaspati, you have the banyan tree and the bale tree, and all those things come together, right, in the upachar. So we are being respectful. Each astra is being worshipped. And even Mahishasur is worshipped, right? So if it was a negative character, we wouldn't have mantra to worship Mahishasur. This is one interesting thing that I found out, is that when we are doing this Durga Puja, we are actually creating worshipping on 2 camps. You have the Vishnu camp or the gravity side, you have the Brahma or the nuclear electromagnetic force side. So Ganesh is holding Shankha, Chakra, Gada and Padma. It's the same thing as what Vishnu has, right? In a lesser capacity maybe, but Ganesh is endowed with that. And Ganesh is, beside Ganesh we have Mata Lakshmi, which is the consort of Vishnu. So that's the Vishnu side we have put, or the gravity side. Then on the right hand side you have Brahma, which is again, we are not worshipping Brahma directly, because worshipping of Brahma was prohibited by the shrap of Savitri. Yeah, and but we are worshipping the Kartik form. Okay, Kartik is Skandha, right? And there Kartik is created by Brahma, and it is Kartik is the Prajapati, because Prajapati Brahma. So where Shiva is the father of Brahma, it is said Shiva is the foster father. Actually father is Agni, whose seed is the fireball. So the story goes like the seed of Agni fell on a river, and from there Kartik was born, but the seed belonged to Shiva. So Shiva is a foster father of Kartik, and Kartik is being brought up by the Matrikas. Yeah. And in the middle you have Durga and Shiva as a stop. Time goes by, unreal. We don't see, we don't work in that form. So it's there. So here we unknowingly is worshipping the whole of creation in this one frame.
So with this, I want to come to the next section in your presentation. What is the cyclic multiverse, and what was there in the universe before the Big Bang?
Oh my God! You want me to say that? That would be a big thing. Well, I'll attempt in my own humble way, whatever I think that we can talk about. See, we have been very, very clear about one thing, that Big Bang, there is a word Mahaspota in our thing, but that is not the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, it's a completely cyclic universe. What Roger Penrose is currently saying is the present universe did not start with a big bang, and that there was another universe before the present one traces. Traces of older universe can be discovered in the present black holes and certain electromagnetic radiation spots in the sky. Okay. In Rig Veda, in the Hiranyagarbha section 10.121.2, it says that consciousness carrier, the Hiranyagarbha, which gives so Hiranya is golden, and Garbha means the womb,
Boom.
right? Which gives order to the universe, is worshipped by the gods, or in our sense particles or elementary particles, energy, whatever. The energy is directed to settled probable state or chaya, and the energy is recycled, amrita. Okay, amrita means which continues the rita. The word means the universal order, universal equilibrium, yeah, rhythm, right, right. And amrita is basically your continuity, so it doesn't end, it continues. And ma gives that meaning to it. So in that way, amrita means the best, because it doesn't end, right, in our thing. So and mrita is which has an ending state. So mrita, mrityu, it has an end state. But amrita doesn't have an end state. It continuously recycles itself.
Infinite.
Continuously, and not reaches the state of mrita. The Lord Prajapati, or Ka is the word sound used to mean Prajapati, Brahma. Okay, the first doer supplies the energy. The energy basically, when havis or ghee, he is the energy. So every time havan, when we put this, we are putting in more. We are symbolically saying that okay, it's a replenishment of energy in that, as per the rules of this cosmic order. Yeah. So to give you an example, and I'm not going to give you an example. If you have you gone to any say a wax museum or something, right? You see these wax statues.
Yes.
So Amitabh Bachchan and Sachin and Shah Rukh Khan. So can you imagine that statue is nothing but petroleum?
Right.
Do we ever?
Or we don't.
We don't, right? And now, if we cannot think of that is petroleum, now think that petroleum itself is a past plant which has died billions of years ago.
Right.
That plant went under the earth, it died, it transformed into decomposed and transformed and created this energy. And then two things came out: the liquid part, which is a petroleum, crude oil, and then your natural gas, okay, which is more subtle from the same plant, right? And then you capture the gas and use it in certain ways, and you capture the liquid part and you use it in certain ways. From that also, this is Amritam. This universal is Amritam. So even say today, that wax, when it melts, it again goes back to earth. It again churns back, right? So continuously recycled, and that's the concept that we had from this. And this is an example. You can think of that the air part may be the subtle consciousness element which is around us, right? We take the crude oil, we make plastic, we do all this thousands modification, and use it in our daily lives. But then you have the gas which we forget and which is surrounding us. Maybe that's the subtle consciousness coming out of that same recycled universe. So it's a separation that happens, and the universe is always trying to limit that separate. It's separated, and now they're always kind of trying to unite, and trying to make this conscious effort, making us conscious, more and more conscious, so that we help in that process of that unification to that original state. What modern science is saying, the universe will live in has a set of physical constants. So it's a bubble universe. Andrew Linde is saying, because every time, like a bubble soap, some universe is getting created. And in our Samhitas also, it is saying, in his work of creation, millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. The entire universe exists in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms, and are scattered through the universe as one and the same. Such is the primeval Lord, and I adore. Okay, so that same idea of like in a soap, bubble soap, your bubbles come out and then go back. Each bubble itself is a complete thing in itself, but again it is not separate from that water on which it is forming. And again, so nothing changes for the water, even if a bubble forms on it. So that's why we are saying in that Shanti mantra, where we are saying that in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it's mentioned, the whole came out of the whole, and the whole remains, right? Nothing changes. That's the cyclic nature of our universe. And if you look at the image of basically the idea of Sri Vishnu, the Mahavishnu, she is in that Ananta state, and with multiple universe, where that gravity is the only constant thing. Okay, and everything else changes as per the laws of nature. And the same thing if you look at a piece of bread, and just to give an example, so you may have these bulges, which may be one of the universe, and and there is those holes, maybe some energy parameters are different, like it's a black hole kind of a situation. So the same concept of cyclic universe, I'm not going in too much details, that in the Bhagavad Gita also, at the end of one kalpa, all living beings merge into my primordial material energy at the beginning of the next creation, O son of Kunti. So here Arjun is called son of Kunti, and not Arjun himself, right? I manifest them again, presiding over my material energy. I generate these myriad forms again and again in accordance with the force of their nature. Yeah. So it is that that's the concept. I take it like the only universe, the gravity being constant across all these things. Basically, all this boils down, if I have to capture that into a very simple equation of how this thing is. I know the E equals to mc squared type of is a very fascinating one. So we also have given an equation for ourselves in our scriptures, which is Atman into Prana into Prani is equal to Prani Jagat. So the unchanging, the free consciousness and energy, the prana, and that is creating this Prani Jagat, or everything in this universe which is conscious. Prana means basically is something that is the primordial, means the first, there is nothing before that. Okay, means the mixing of the opposite forces. Hence prana is at the root and the driver of all material creation. Like to create sound, we have to clap with two hands, and the integration of these two, Atman and prana, is creating spinning of all these material bodies at every time. I can briefly touch upon, so does this satisfy some of the ancient, some of our Upanishadic doctrines like Aham Brahmasmi and all, Mahavakyas. So it is indeed, because if this theory, what I was just explaining, is right, then everything is guna, is string. We are made of that same string and every aspect is. So I and my Brahman is qualitatively same, but I am not same in its same as its potency. So he has a greater potency. I have a limited one, but I am the same material. So and I have the opportunity to become better, will improve the potency of my living. And the Maya means measure, it is also means creation. In summary, what we have, universe is an evolution from consciousness to energy to matter, from subtle to gross. Strings, the one-dimensional energy bands, or equals to guna, triguna, evolving from ahankar, the ego consciousness at a gross level. Maya is the measurable finite universe made up of vibrating strings, Rudra. Vishnu is gravity is the firstborn, then Brahma, strong nuclear force, then Shiva, electromagnetic force, Saraswati, the weak nuclear force. Fifth is Saguna Brahma or Ishwar, is the unified field with its constants. We live in a 10-dimensional space. 10 dimensions is that's the domain of the entirety of Mahadurga. Out of the earlier universe, Hiranyagarbha was created from the merger of energy and consciousness. Universe is deterministic and retrocausal. Saguna Brahma or brain, 2-dimensional energy sheets, which is the material and efficient cause of the universe, and Nirguna is not even the material cause in terms of philosophical of Advaita. There are innumerable universes with each having their own physical properties, like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Shiva. Big Bang is not the beginning. Energy and consciousness are continuously recycled, Amrita. Cyclic universe or bubble universe sprouts at on an infinite gravitational field or kshetra. Krishna is the kshetraga or the gravity. So that's as per the Gita. So those are the 12, I would say, bullet point conclusions. Yeah, you can take away from this. But the important takeaway is that I think this will give us a more concrete understanding on what our rishis, how far their thoughts were.
What they were thinking.
It's difficult to predict that, but at least we can make an attempt to understand and decode. And the reason we are able to, and all these are coming out of that research that I've been doing for the last 25 years, is based on based on the verb-based semantics of Sanskrit, going to the root word, decoding this, and if you look into the Vishnu Sahasranam, there are these epithets of Samkarshan, which means something that attracts. Okay, Krishna itself means attraction, which is again the property of gravity, right? Achyuta. So Achyuta means that which does not let you move from your place.
Okay.
Because of the gravity, the earth, the moon, and they're all settled in their own place, on their path and place. So we have been continuously adding those, or has already had this with us. It's now an effort in this direction.